Dr. Ellen here with this Grow a Generation tutorial on the coordinate system in Scratch 1.4. We're about to learn some difficult math concepts, so please take a second to strike a superhero pose. I'm serious, by the way. You want to take a deep breath and approach this with confidence. Confidence that when you learn something difficult and you make mistakes and work through them, your brain actually grows and changes. So be patient with yourself and very resilient at trying to master this material. The coordinate system in Scratch is the stage area. Scratch determines where your sprites appear on that stage by using an X and Y coordinate system. The system is a grid in which each point can be represented mathematically. Scratch's coordinate system uses two coordinates, an X position and a Y position, to determine the location of the sprite on the stage. The X position determines the horizontal location of the sprite, and the Y position determines the vertical location or height. The screen is on a 480 by 360 pixel rectangle, so that the X position can be from 240 on the positive or right side of the screen and negative 240 on the negative or left side of the screen. And it can be from 180 at the height, the top of the screen, to negative 180 at the bottom of the screen. The origin in Scratch is in the center of the screen, where X equals 0 and Y equals 0. When you go into other programs, that's not always the case. For example, in HTML5's Canvas API, creating apps for phones, you're going to find the origin in the upper left-hand corner. And when you're using a program such as Quartz, you may find it in the bottom left-hand corner. That point, 0, 0, is called the origin. Think of a number line. Moving to the right is a positive X. And this is where it gets tricky. Moving to the left in Scratch gives you a negative X. And moving up gives you a positive Y, and down gives you a negative Y. But when you're working in those other programs where the origin is in a corner, then the X goes away from the origin horizontally, and the Y goes away from the origin vertically. So when you go down in those other programs, you get a positive Y. No wonder we get so confused. The coordinate system in Scratch, we're going to stick to that for the rest of this tutorial. It's also called a Cartesian coordinate system. It is an essential part of elementary algebra. Equations and expressions in algebra can be graphed on a Cartesian plane, and they produce various shapes. For example, x squared plus y squared draws a circle. It was a mathematician named René Descartes. The Carte part of his name forms the Cartesian. René Descartes wanted to be able to use math to describe where a fly was in his room as he watched it buzzing around. He created a grid system, but thought of it in 3 dimensions so that he could think of up and down, wall to wall going one way, and wall to wall going another way. He actually used an X, Y, and Z coordinate. But we're working in 2 dimensions, sort of like seeing the fly crawling along one single wall. Scratch is in a 2-dimensional environment. As you grow as an animator, you'll learn how to render objects in 3 dimensions. 3D programming will be touched on in the higher belt levels, but most of our projects will be in 2 dimensions. In other words, they only need an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. So once again, the X position is where the sprites are on the X axis, the horizontal of the stage. The value increases or decreases depending on how far right or left on the stage the sprite is. Directly in the center of the stage is 0. Usually, the spot on the sprite that goes to the X coordinate is in the center of the sprite. The Y position is where the sprite is on the Y axis, or the vertical of the stage. The value gets higher or lower depending how far up on the stage the sprite is. Directly in the center is 0. The top is 180, and the lower limit is -180. The sprite's costume center is where the X and Y positions meet. There are a variety of blocks you use to send your sprite or read where your sprite is. The X and Y positions can be determined and set by the following blocks. The first 2 are reporter blocks. We'll use them when we want to begin to work on the Scratch interactive belts. The 3 others are stack blocks, and they tell the sprite to move to a particular X and Y position. If you're unfamiliar with the coordinate systems, or you need some practice with it, I suggest that you attempt to program a simple exercise called play ball. Open up your Scratch and try this experiment with me. Set a baseball to the center screen and then have it go home, first base, second base, third, and glide back home. You can then set it to randomly go to various X and Y axes. Can you write that program by yourself? Hit pause, and if you need a hint, we'll open up the scripts in just a second. Do you need a hint? Here you go. A simple program to take you around the whole stage to the maximums and minimums of the X and Y axis. Congratulations! You finished the help video on the coordinate systems. Now you're ready to continue your path to the orange belt.